Conversations about mental health is something that's way long overdue, but because of people like Symone and Vanessa, these conversations are being had now and supported by some amazing organizations like the Stolen Start, a global female running collective that seeks to empower all women through community. All right, so my first question is always this. Vanessa and Symone, when did you guys first fall in love with running? Symone, let's start with you.
I first fell in love with running at the age of 3, when I joined my local athletics club, which is actually behind my house that I still live in right now. It's called Avondale Athletics Club in Auckland, New Zealand, and yeah, it was just like a local running club. I actually joined it because my sister first joined it, and when I saw her doing the running, doing discus and shot put, I was like, you know what, I want to do that too. So ever since then, I've been running since I was 3.
Vanessa?
Yeah, so my love for running actually started 3 years ago when I started running with a local run community called Koreatown Run Club based in Los Angeles. And I saw that they were training for the 2019 Los Angeles Marathon, and I was up for the challenge. And by this point, I hadn't done any sports. I never did any sports in college or high school. And so it was all very new to me. But throughout that journey, I realized like running is so much more than just like putting one foot in front of the other. It's about connecting with the community, the KRC, also connecting with your ancestors, yourself, and finding like a freedom when it comes to this.
Now, talking about community there, you guys are working with the Stolen Start program, a global female running collective. Do you guys want to talk about that and how you guys found yourself involved with that project?
So originally, I've been with the New Zealand women's community based over here. So, when the Stolen Starts reached out to me about, female empowerment, which is, the whole message behind Stolen Starts, I was like, hell yeah, I want to do that. Because for me personally, naturally, I'm all about girls. I'm all about hyping them up, and I think for me, society always puts women against each other. So to have this initiative with Stolen Starts, we can uplift one another despite not personally knowing each other, was really important for me because, we get to do it through running and through wearing the apparel, which is empowering itself.
So New Balance being a brand that champions women athletes, you could easily tell through their roster of incredible athletes like Gabby Thomas, who I actually got to meet at the ESPN Women's Summit in San Diego this year. And that was such an incredible experience. So when they reached out to me and just asked me to be a part of the Stolen Starts collective, it was a no-brainer for me.
Now, because you guys are female runners, my perspective is from the male side of things. And I got into a conversation with a guy who has raised a lot of great awareness for female runners. What is some of the challenges as female runners you guys face that men and or most people may never know about?
So personally for me, being a sprinter, there's a lot of comparing like with body image. I think when it comes to just being out there competing, we do tend to get compared a lot, not because of our results, but because of the way we look like. So personally, I'm a full Samoan Islander girl, so I'm more built more muscly compared to a European girl, and there's nothing wrong with the way girls are shaped, but we tend to still have that stigma towards us because I think in people's heads, they think that there's a particular way sprinters should look. And that always sometimes falls back on us sprinters personally because we just feel kind of pressured that we need to, fit that mold or fit those standards in order to be accepted into the sprinting world. So yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed and still going through at the moment.
Vanessa?
Yeah, definitely. That's I definitely see that, Symone. I'm more of like a casual runner, I would say. So usually when I go out for a run, it's on the street or on the sidewalk. And so throughout that, there is definitely challenges when it comes to just overall women's runners safety. So every time I go for a run, I bring something with me to help defend myself. Luckily, I've never had to use any pepper spray, but I have it with me just in case, because there's always, every single run I go on, there's someone's catcalling, someone is just like being a little aggressive towards me. So I have to keep my eye out for that. And I know that's not a challenge that's faced only by women, it's by communities of color as well. So just definitely want to highlight that as well.
Yeah, and it's also something I feel like we all don't talk about enough, and I'll take responsibility for that. And even listen, I live in a town that's not very diverse, and if you see me running down the street in a tank top, covered in tattoos, I'm brown, and it's definitely something that I had to get used to, especially in this new town that I'm in. But again, the more I do it, the more confident I build. But the more we talk about it, the more the stigma is minimized. So thank you guys for doing your part too. Since you guys are both mental health advocates, and like I mentioned to you guys before the recording of this, that I am a huge champion for mental health. I see a therapist, and I've said this many times, some of the best therapy I've done has been out on the road. How has running positively impacted your mental health?
So in 2018, I was diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety, and for the whole of 2018, 2019, I actually lost my love for track. But then it wasn't until last year I rekindled that love, because I started reaching out for professional help. I think, you know, there is a stigma around mental health, especially when we're quite young, coming out of school. We're not given those tools, or we're not told what anxiety is or what depression is. So, you know, experiencing those things for the first time was very foreign and very frightening for me, because I generally thought when I was having my first anxiety attack, I was having an asthma attack. So now I know the difference for sure. But when I rekindled my love back to running, it was because I reached out and I accepted that I had depression, anxiety. So then it made me accept who I am, and also made me, you know, find that love back into my running. And then surprisingly, I started getting the results that I knew that I was capable of, only because I found that love and the fun back into running. So yeah.
Yeah, so running has played a huge part in my personal life, especially in raising awareness around causes I care about, like mental health. In 2014, I really struggled a lot with my mental health. This was when I was in college, and conversations around mental health at the time weren't as open and honest as they are now. So navigating the world through that lens in a different experience was definitely like life-changing. And so that propelled me into being more open and honest about it since then, you know, talking to my friends about therapy, about how I'm feeling, about depression, anxiety. And so, you know, with that journey in my mind, that really like propelled me to use running as a tool for mental health. And so I've actually launched a quest, which ends this weekend, the day of the LA Marathon, New York City Marathon. And so I'll be pledging my miles to Students Run LA, which is an organization that partners with over 185 schools in the LA County. And it helps them along their journey while also training them for the LA Marathon. And so I just want to give a big shout out real quick to New Balance for, you know, supporting the athletes on this journey with me through their prizes. And they also donated $1,500 to Students Run LA.
That is amazing. And you said your marathon is this weekend?
Yeah, so I'm doing LA Marathon and same exact day as New York City Marathon.
I assume the New York City Marathon for us is going to be a lot cooler than it is out in LA.
I think it's going to be a little warmer here, but I've done it twice so far, so we'll see. And I'm actually like really pushing myself this year. So,
well, Vanessa, on that note, what has been some of your most fun marathon experiences? Because I think some people think the marathon is misery, but it can really be a fun experience. Obviously, it's a challenge, but if you make the best of it, it's a blast.
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey in itself. Like some days I don't want to go for a run, but I still do it. And, you know, just being able to show up for myself and like throw down miles, even when I don't want to, it's made me realize like I have a power within myself that I knew was always there, but I maybe just didn't see it at the time. And so, putting one foot in front of the other also goes well beyond running for me. It helps me just show up for myself outside of that, just one day at a time.
And that was the biggest thing when it came to running. I was able to create a parallel between the running and just my everyday life. And I found that to be one of the most beneficial aspects of getting out there on the road like every day.
Yeah, exactly. It keeps you going.
Now, Symone, I know you're a sprinter. So you run short distances very fast. And it's pretty impressive because I also read you're the third fastest person or female in New Zealand. So congratulations on that. But also I wanted to ask, is there ever a potential for you to run a marathon?
Definitely not. I would watch, I would support, I'll be the best cheerleader. But yeah, if you're asking for an asthma attack, if I attempt one, for sure.
Now, I know you guys have both made amazing strides thus far for the Stolen Start. I've heard that you guys have worked with some good companies and made some great donations. Symone?
So I haven't made any donations at the moment yet, but I'm still in the works of trying to give back to my community. I discussed with a few of the people in Stolen Starts about, me being an islander in New Zealand. I'm considered a minority. So it's funny that majority of the minorities in New Zealand is makes up the population of sports in New Zealand. So it's mostly Māori and Pacific Islanders that really drive the sporting realm here in New Zealand. So to be able to give back to my people is definitely something I'm still working on.
Cool. And Vanessa?
Currently raising money for Students Run LA. So far, the athletes that have joined, we have about 18 athletes on the roster. And we've collected around $2,500 individually or collectively. And then also on top of that, New Balance donated $1,500. So I think that's like, if my math is correct, like 4,000 or so. So still working on it though. Ends this weekend. So we still got a few days left.
Now here's a question for both you guys. I am a dad of 4. 2 of my kids are females who are both 9. They're twins. They're just starting to get into competitive sports. How should I introduce the power of running to them and also other aspects of mental health? Probably something I wish somebody would have coached me up when I was young, but I want to do the right steps now, being that they're 9. Symone, I'll start with you.
Firstly, introduce running as something fun to do. That's something that my parents firstly got me into doing. Running is fun, no pressure behind it. But I think when you start growing up, getting into your young teenage years, you start becoming more vulnerable to the outside noises. And I think it's super important while your children are going through those stages, just to remind them that we're still doing this for fun. I still love you regardless of the results. And also when it comes to like mental health, if they're having an off day, they'd be like, hey, I don't feel like running today. Just remind them that's okay. You can do something else. Because I think for me, I felt really guilty every time I missed a training session because I was having an off day. And I think that's still not talked about. If you're injured, then you're obviously going to take a day off. It should be the same with mental health. If you are not feeling well, take a day off, recharge and go again. And that's okay. So yeah, that's me.
And that's interesting because even as adults, I feel like we don't think about that enough. Take a day off, even when you have to. I think we try to barrel through. And me, myself, being a minority and having parents who immigrated here, that mindset was instilled in me. So there weren't sick days, there weren't anything like that. Never mind talking about mental health. So that's great advice. Vanessa?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Symone. For sure, running is a fun sport. So introduce it that way. I think also when it comes to marathon training, when I actually talk to my friends about marathon training, they're like, how can you do that? How do you run a marathon for so long? And I'm like, I'm not like sprinting the whole time, I'm like, maybe a steady jog if I could. So yeah, definitely make it a fun experience. And I would end every run if I could on a high note and leave a little bit of gas in the tank so you're not like completely empty and you can fuel on that on the next time. And then in terms of just like finding the connection there with mental health, I agree with Symone again. Just, you know, if you need a day off, take the day off. I take plenty of days off from work. So definitely, you know, putting yourself first, because, you know, to get your work done, to get your school done, to get things done, you need to, you know, be whole yourself. So.
Now, last question for each of you. Vanessa, I'll start with you. What's one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Actually, I'll take this from my mom. Because when I was struggling with my mental health in 2014, I would call her all the time, and I would just be like crying and not sure what was wrong, but she would just say to me, Vanessa, just take it a day at a time. And so that helped me find some peace when it comes to my journey, not worrying about too far in advance. It's definitely okay to plan ahead, but, you know, taking things one day at a time, doing your work one piece at a time, running one step at a time. That is definitely like a piece of advice I'd give to myself.
Symone?
I think the advice I'd give to my younger self is that everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to that you've planned out will work. You might have a few obstacles in the way, but it's going to turn out the way you wanted it. I think especially when in my darkest moments, when I thought everything was wrong, everything was going bad, I'll tell myself that you're gonna get through this. You have a great support system, and just keep smiling. That's something I'll tell my younger self.
Great. That was very empowering. I feel like we should end there on that high note. It was condensed, it was packaged up nice. Is there anything you guys want to mention before we go?
I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Stolen Starts. It's been a great journey so far, even though, I haven't been able to meet all the amazing women. This is my first time actually meeting Vanessa, so big up to Vanessa. I just want to say, thank you so much to Stolen Starts and Santi for giving us this opportunity and platform to talk about mental health stories, and also just, spreading the good word.
Vanessa?
Yeah. Thank you, Santi, for having us. This chat has been absolutely incredible. Thank you to New Balance for bringing this wonderful collective of women to the platform and giving us like the platform to really like champion our causes and things we care about and unite us through running. So thank you. Because
of the amazing inclusiveness of the running community, that made this amazing conversation happen. Thank you to the Stolen Starts, and also a huge thank you to Symone and Vanessa for bringing much needed awareness to mental health. Again, it's something we don't speak enough about. Now, to stay up to date on all things the Stolen Starts, visit newbalance.com/running and follow New Balance Women on Instagram.